to Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the betting show for UFC Fight Night between Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev. We're going to be breaking down the main event as well as another main card fight. So excited to break this down here. And listen, we're coming off another profitable evening last weekend. 2-1 on client plays. Did hit again on a 5% max bet winner. That was on Bryce Mitchell, minus 140. Caught it nicely. It was one of those ones that you just sit back, you enjoy the beating, you cash your ticket, and you move on to the next weekend. So it was another nice cash for us there. Ended up cashing in for 6.75 units total for the evening. We'll take that every single Saturday night. So with that being said, now this weekend I do have a 4% best bet play. Take a look, link that in the description if you're interested. And I'm going to have multiple plays here. There's a lot of plays I do like this weekend, so I'm going to kind of see how I square that up right now. Do have 2 plays up on the package now. We'll be adding more as we get closer to fight night. But with that being said, we are going to be diving into the main event of the evening, which is going to be Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev here. So you've got currently now, we've got Magomed, he's minus 590. That has just really swelled up. And we've got Santos is plus 410. Wide range there. But like we always do, we're going to talk about each fighter, their last 3 fights, and see what we see if one fighter can expose the other, and if the line makes sense to place a wager. So, with that being said, we are first going to talk about Thiago Santos, and now we see about 3 fights ago he fought Glover Teixeira. Now this was one of those fights, and I actually went back and rewatched this one because it was just so interesting. And I think this is a spot here where you do see a little bit of the decline of Santos. You see a little bit of that old Santos, and then you start to see kind of that decline here. And then this fight here with Glover, right away, Santos clips him. Santos clips Glover. He's hurt. But the one thing that Glover consistently does in almost every fight is he gets clipped and somehow is able to scramble, get in tight. It's almost just that veteran experience where when he's been hurt, he's really been able to kind of find positioning, find top control. And this was pretty much the same spot where he got clipped. It looked like Santos was really going to just go wild at a certain point. We've seen Glover not really take punches very well. And then that was really a spot where Glover finds top control somehow, gets that takedown, works from top position. Even that Santos kind of looked to scramble, got him back down, had full mount at one point in the first round, landing big shots, and that's where you really saw kind of the deflation of Santos in this fight here. And going into that second round, it was more of the same. It was more Glover getting the takedowns. It was more positioning. There's a point where Santos is just not pulling the trigger. And early in that fight, you saw he has that success, but then once he started worrying, he really was hesitant, really just was not allowing himself to just pull the trigger in certain spots. Glover kept cutting the distance. Anytime Glover kind of stood with him, he decided, I don't want to do this anymore. He ends up going for takedowns, ended up mauling him again in that second round. But then in that third round, it was the same thing. Glover gets clipped. Glover goes for the takedowns, finds a good positioning, gets the submission victory in that third round. But again, you saw that obviously Santos has that power, but again, it was nullified by the grappling from Glover. The veteran moves that he did ended up going out there and getting the submission victory against Thiago Santos in the third round. 2 fights ago, Alexander Rakic he fought, and now this was another fight here where again, to me it's another tick down from the old Santos that we used to see, and just the bruiser, the killer instinct, going forward, throwing big shots, not scared to be in the pocket. This was kind of the other thing here. You've got 2 guys here that are kickboxers, and I think they respected each other's power a lot in this particular situation, where I just don't think that neither was looking to really advance fully or really just go in and just fire. I think they both really had a lot of respect for each other. But they're both just very measured. They both kind of stayed on the outside, picked certain spots where they would land a couple nice shots. Thiago Santos looked even more hesitant again. And I think it's just an over-caution from him. I think it's just overly cautious at certain spots there where I think he could have pulled the trigger. I think Rakic kind of allowed him to stay in the fight a little bit more, as he wasn't really pulling the trigger either. But this is a fight here over, an uneventful fight, over 3 rounds. They kind of both just stayed at range. There was a point even where Rakic kind of just smothered and kept Santos up against the fence. He gets the decision victory over Santos, but it really was uneventful on both sides. Limited combinations from each guy. None of them really landing big, damaging shots especially from these two types of fighters that have that ability to go out there and get finishes, find the opponent's chin. But this one was a 3-round fight here, and Rakic just did enough to get that decision victory, so he goes out there and he beats Thiago Santos. Then most recently, he fought Johnny Walker. Now, I am definitely not going to be diving into this fight because this was a 5-round fight that was even more uneventful than the Rakic fight, where again, Santos just outside, not pulling the trigger. We know that, Walker has shown to have a suspect chin, as we consistently see that over his career, and Santos just couldn't find his chin. He wasn't pulling the trigger. Walker wasn't pulling the trigger because God knows Walker's a little bit iffy about his own chin. He has power. Both these men have power, so they just both kind of danced around the cage and pitter-pattered shots for about 5 rounds. Until the very end, and I kind of had it about 2-2 going into that last, if what I remember, I think it was 2-2 going to that last round, and Santos kind of finally pulled the trigger, finally went forward, kind of hurt Walker. That gave him the round. So he did get Santos did get the decision victory there, but it was just a very blah, lackluster kind of fight for Thiago Santos, but he does go out there and get the victory over Johnny Walker. Now, on the other side, we've got Magomed Ankalaev. And 3 fights ago, he fought Ankalaev. Now, this was a bad blood fight that nobody asked for because they had the one fight prior where Ankalaev faked like he was hurt and started throwing big shots, and then the fight was called. It was just a weird situation there, and really stupid of Ankalaev to even, play that I'm hurt, firing shots. It was early in the fight. It was just a weird situation, the way that he ended up kind of doing that. But they had a second fight here, and boy, did Magomed show who's the better fighter between these two. They go out there and in that first round, and really, Ankalaev is just, he is really measured with his shots. He's precise. He's economical with his shots. He's not wasting energy. He's not anything that Magomed does is just enough energy to look for damage. He's not exerting himself. He's not firing a massive combination for no reason where a guy's all shelled up. He doesn't shoot for takedowns. He doesn't think he can get them. He is very precise and strategic, and I think that helps him in every fight. He's just very calm. He's very relaxed. And this is the same kind of thing where I think Ankalaev really was just looking for the big shot. He was like, since it's such bad blood, he was looking for that big shot. Magomed kind of stayed back, landed some shots, picked apart until he waited for the big shot. And again, for a lot of the situations here for him is early in the fight, he is really picking up data. He's kind of staying on the outside, seeing how you move, throwing feints, seeing how you're, reacting to these movements, and then he starts to fill up some shots, and those open spaces starts to land some combinations. But he lands a big shot, a left hook that drops Ankalaev. He swarms, fight over. First round knockout for Magomed Ankalaev. So they have it there. 2 fights ago, he fought Nikita Krylov, and this was a fight here. Now you got Nikita, who has the grappling, and the one thing about Magomed that a lot of people I think don't realize is that he is really well-rounded. He has a great ground game. He's got, he's really evolving his striking even further now. And this was a spot here where you didn't really, Nikita did not want to stand and strike with him. And he was going to look, I'm going to look for the takedowns, I'm going to look for it, and he was able to kind of get the early takedown, push forward a little bit, and then when they were at range, I really liked what I saw again from Magomed. He was able to kind of pick him apart. I think part of the reason why he didn't unload and he kind of kept that distance, and the fact that this fight went 3 rounds, is really because I think he was worried about the takedowns. Did not want to have that. He actually, Magomed started implementing his own takedowns, looking to seek the level changes, moving forward. That was, he started to kind of, instead of allowing Nikita to kind of dictate the pace, he then kind of tried to change it. So you're going to take me down, I'm going to take you down. Let me change up the how I'm really manipulating my offense. But then you started seeing moving into the later rounds, Magomed started to really get into his rhythm, land the shots. He played it a little bit safe, I think, but when the shots were there, he started taking them. He ends up getting a decision victory over Nikita Krylov, so Magomed wins there. And then most recently, it was against Volkan Ozdemir. And you had Magomed, he was a -320, is what I have down here, which is just, crazy. But this was a spot here where really, you saw, again, this was a striking bout. You saw 2 big guys go in there. And what you saw here early was Volkov was dropped early, And that changed everything, because it was almost like Volkov was moving forward. He was trying to cut distance, get in his face. He wanted those exchanges. He wanted to, let's go blow for blow kind of thing. He gets dropped early, and that really changed everything in that fight for Volkov, where he realized how actually precise and powerful that Magomed is. He drops him. At that point, Magomed started walking him down, pushing forward. They were both landing good shots, but he just kept the pace going. Again, the way that Magomed is, and he's the kind of guy that can go for the takedowns if he wants that, but it just shows in a bout against, and I know a lot of people don't put Volkov as such a high striker or a high fighter, but he has ability, and I thought he fought extremely, extremely, extremely well, staying at range, clean combinations, outstriking him over those 3 rounds is just, I think it says a lot, again, about how good he is, dropping him, working, again, dropped Volkov later in that fight. I think it was the 3rd round he dropped him again. But a decision victory nonetheless for Magomed. He gets the victory there. So with that being said, obviously both of these guys are high-level strikers. They have the kickboxing background, that's obviously going to help them both. But I think the biggest thing here is the decline of the killer instinct of Santos. And could that be because once he had pretty much blew up his knee, or his leg, or whatever he had done to it, torn ligaments, whatever it was when he fought John Jones, it just does not seem like the same fighter that fought prior to prior fights from John Jones. Just does not seem the same type of guy. He doesn't have that tenacious, move forward, do not care, brawler, has the power, is fine standing toe-to-toe because he's figuring I'm going to have the power advantage over whoever's going to be in the pocket with me. And now he just is extremely hesitant. And that, to me, really obviously points to Magomed, who's going to be able to kind of work on the outside. Obviously, if Santos is not pulling the trigger, that's going to help Magomed, work his offense, build up the damage, chip away on him over the extent of the fight. And that, again, allows him to dictate the pace. Also, the fact that we're back in the smaller cage now. And I think that's also going to help more of these two guys fighting, exchanging, in the pocket, working. That, to me, again, is really where you could find a finish. It's going to force the finish when you've got two guys of this caliber, of this striking, who, again, Magomed is going to look to move forward. He's going to force Santos to fire. And he's not going to be the way that some of these other fights were, where Santos is at distance, like Rakic, and they're kind of just pitter-pattering. I think it's going to be more pushing forward for Magomed, forcing these exchanges in the pocket. And then the other part here, I think is really big, is the fact that Santos went the distance with Johnny Walker. I mean, let's be real there. Johnny Walker, if there's a gust of wind, Johnny Walker gets knocked out. I mean, the guy has terrible cardio, a bad chin, and he couldn't find or put away Walker. He did not rock him and blast him. Again, now, obviously, Walker, this win over Walker has not aged very well. It's really showing that, man, anybody clips this guy, he goes down, and Santos couldn't do it. He could not put him away. He never pushed forward, even knowing that Johnny Walker has a weak chin. He never pushed forward. He never looked to land the big shot here. So I really think that this is the spot here where he's going to be looking to push forward Magomed. He's going to be looking to kind of dictate this pace of this fight here and over the entire fight. And also the fact that you've got now, Santos is 38, I believe, where you've got Magomed's 29, 28, somewhere in that range. So this is the end of this guy's career. I mean, as much as I don't feel we ever saw the entire body of work of where he could go, and again, he fought John Jones so well, but this is now the end of his career. This is a spot here where Magomed can really capitalize, build his name, if he can go out there and get a victory. And where I'm looking at this for the most part also is there are going to be takedown opportunities. We've seen Santos, who can scramble, who's a strong guy, who can kind of bully his way out of these positionings. But what I do like is just the fact that if Magomed needs those takedowns, he's highly capable of getting those takedowns. He's a Greco-Roman champion, so he's got ability, kind of be in the clinch, look to wrestle, get the takedowns, ground and pound. And that's also where Santos is going to start to drain his cardio. And I just don't see a spot where he can land the big shot. Early, of course, Santos has it, but as this fight goes on, I just think Magomed consistently works, chips away, lands the big shots, and this is a spot here where you also see Santos is the kind of guy where he's getting hit, he kind of at this point just turtles up. He turtles up a lot, turns his back, gives up positioning, and that's also another spot where Magomed can really capitalize, land the big shots, push forward, level change, ground and pound. There's just a lot of pass for a guy that is going to allow you space and allow you to pretty much do what you want. So in this spot here, I do like Magomed Ankalaev. I think he obviously goes there, gets the job done. But at minus 590, we are not betting that at minus 590. So here, I like the situation here of method of victory, Ankalaev via knockout at plus 130. I think this is a great spot here. I think he's not going to allow Santos to just be at distance and not dictate the pace. This is a big spot for Ankalaev. I think he knows getting a knockout here really, or a finish just really puts him onto that next level. His record's fantastic. He's got a lot of hype behind him that's starting to build. Putting away Santos here would really be a great thing. So I think he goes for it. I think that, again, smaller cage, a lot more interaction. So I do think that there will be a knockout here from Magomed Ankalaev. We're getting off the big minus 590 number. We're getting to plus 130 via knockout. So as my free play, it is Magomed Ankalaev via knockout plus 130. And the other fight we're going to be talking about here is Drew Dober versus Terrance McKinney. Our boy Terrance McKinney. So we had Terrance McKinney 2 weeks ago as a client play. He went out there and just steamrolled Zion and just ran through him, got the finish. Awesome way to cash at a nice plus money there. Here again, we are looking at McKinney as another plus money dog here. So we've got Drew Dober as minus 188. You've got Terrance McKinney at the comeback at plus 152. So you got both of these guys here, well-rounded fighters. Both guys striking, but you've got obviously Drew Dober, who is the vet, who's been around, who's fought some tough guys. And Terrance McKinney's that, the new flavor coming in. He's getting some knockouts, heavy finishes, looks great on the ground, knocking guys out, just looks good all around. But I think the first thing here when we're looking at it here, Drew Dober over his last 5 fights is 3-2. Obviously that's not terrible by any means. He's fought some tough guys, but if you kind of look at some of the wins that he had over those, to me again, it just gives you a little crack of maybe there's opportunity here for Terrance. And first you look at that he fought Marco Polo Reyes. And Marco Polo Reyes now is 0-3. It was 0-3 prior to being cut from the UFC in his last 3 fights. So obviously not saying much there. Then you look at Nasrat Haqparast, who I was actually pretty high on, but I feel like he's just not realizing at this point really his abilities. I think he can be better, but again, this was a spot here where Drew Dober was able to get the victory, and over the last, he's 0-2 in last 2, and Nasrat is 0-2 in his last 2 UFC appearances, and didn't win around in any of those fights. And then he also beat Alexander Hernandez, who is 2-3 in his last 5, and boy, he's looked pretty terrible when he fights anyone of substance. Besides for some of these, cans that he's been beaten, throughout, I guess, his career. Some of them he did in the UFC, some of these kind of lower level fighters that Hernandez is getting. I think the UFC wants to get Hernandez kind of in the mix a little bit more. But with that being said, the part to me that I think could be a path, could be an opportunity for Terrance in this spot is the fact that what I saw with Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell. And now Brad Riddell was a client play winner, plus 125 against Drew Dober, which was a nice cash, a heck of a fight. But the one thing I think that was most telling of this is kind of the grappling situations here. Now, Drew Dober's a tough guy. The guy's got legs like tree trunks. He's a strong guy. Definitely, not the easiest guy to take down. But Brad Riddell, who is a flat-out kickboxer, was able to get 4 takedowns against Drew Dober. Now, maybe he wasn't prepared for it. Maybe he wasn't ready for it just because Riddell is not somebody who's looking for takedowns. He's really going to be that kickboxing, stand-up kind of game. But Terrance has the takedowns. We talked about that. I talked about that in the last time that he had fought, that people don't realize that this guy's just not a knockout artist. He has really strong wrestling, and it's kind of been overshadowed by some of these big knockouts. Now he has a submission victory. People kind of see that, hey, maybe he does have some grappling. But I still feel like if Brad Riddell can get 4, I think that McKinney could look to get something. He could look to just, again, any of those, any way that he's able to kind of work top control, get some ground and pound, slow Drew Dober down a little bit, I think helps him. And you're not going to really be getting much as in takedowns or level changes from Drew Dober, so I don't feel that McKinney is going to be worried about closing distance, because over the last 17 fights for Drew Dober, he's only had 3 takedowns. So this is something that, and one of them was his last fight against Brad Riddell. So you're not really going to see that. And I think that's going to allow McKinney to be in a comfort zone in the pocket, and he could dictate the pace because he's not going to have to worry about these takedowns. Now, obviously, Drew Dober, again, has the experience. There's no doubt about it. And this is, without a doubt, the toughest fight that McKinney has had to face, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, without a doubt that. But also the fact that I like it on the McKinney side is the fact that, yes, he's got that, maybe Drew Dober is going to have that strength advantage, but I like also the utilization of his reach, and 3-inch reach advantage for McKinney on top of that, I think really, really helps. He could smoothly mix in some of these takedowns, and I think, again, that could start to really help him chip away in the scorecards. I don't know if he's going to get the finish here against somebody like Dober. Dober has, an absolute chin. He's definitely a tough guy, not going to be an easy guy to put away. But I think that I just like what he can do and how the weapons that he can really fire off against Drew Dober, where I really see Drew Dober as more boxing heavy. I don't really think that he has enough where it's going to be where McKinney at this plus number is starting to look a little bit better. And then also you have what I like is that McKinney's been active, and he has been looking really good over this time frame. And now you look at it here, you've got Drew Dober fought 4 times since January 2020, and his last bout was June of 2021, where he lost against Brad Riddell. But you've got McKinney on the other side, who fought 4 times in just the last 12 months, and really has not taken much damage at all. Over those 4 fights, all of them were first-round finishes. And he spent, over those 4 fights, he spent 4 minutes and 36 seconds in the cage. Now, you could also take that as maybe a negative, because you're saying he's not getting cage time. Can he last? I don't think there's a cardio issue here. I don't think there's any of that. I just think he is really, really focused. I really like the elevation that he has. I love the fact that the last fight, he didn't just go, I'm going to just strike. I'm going to just strike with Zam, who's another kickboxer. He said, no, I'm going the path of least resistance, which I love that he does that. He did not get caught up and say, let me knock out a kickboxer, or let me do this, where obviously it's going to be a tougher fight. But he knew, get the takedown. That was the path of least resistance. He goes and gets a finish. I think he does a little bit of that in this fight here also, not looking to just exchange toe-to-toe, but I like the fact of his quick developing combinations, how he fires out shots. I really, really do like that. So with that being said, obviously, I do like Terrance McKinney here. The plus 152 number is really a nice number here. I'm kind of surprised it's this high. It kind of puts up a little bit of like, why is it this far? But I mean, again, Drew Dober is the next level, but I like Terrance McKinney here. Plus 152, I like the number. I was actually, and I'm still debating, of making this a client play, of making this a smaller client play, maybe a 2% client play or something like that, because I really like what McKinney has here, and there are some holes and some opportunities for him to expose Drew Dober. But as my sprinkle free play, I am taking Terrance McKinney plus 152 as in my other free play. So there you have it for UFC Fight Night between Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev. Those are my 2 free plays. Gonna have my package up for client plays on Wager Talk, link down in the description, and let's see how we do. Let's keep this going, man. We've been making money. Let's keep it going. This is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.